Hello and welcome to another Gimp tutorial. This is video 4 in the Absolute Beginner's Guide to Python Foo, where we learn how to write Python programs that will create scripts for us in the Gimp. In the last 3 videos we looked at the very basics of Python, just variables and functions, and then we added a little more Python knowledge with the basics of modules and why that is relevant to the Gimp and the procedural database. If all of that is nonsense to you, you better go back and watch the last few videos because this video won't make much sense otherwise. In this tutorial we were going to write a script that simply prints hello world to the error console. This is more or less pointless, but it will teach us 3 things: how to register a script, where to find the error console, and how to test some of your assumptions using the error console. This last one is very helpful as you start to develop your own plugins and need to do some detective work to get them going. You will also notice for this tutorial I will be using a particular text editor. You could use Notepad on Windows, but getting a text editor designed for programmers is much more helpful because they highlight the keywords that you are using and can show you where brackets are closed or haven't been closed, or also speech marks. So it helps you find little problems that might be in your code. These features and many others can make it much easier for you to spot errors and debug your code. On Windows you could use Notepad++ or many other types, but Notepad++ is pretty easy to use. It has a very low learning curve. Also, if you've ever downloaded Python, it comes with its own text editor built in, which is not particularly powerful, but it does the job for what we want to do. It's called idle. I'll be using idle for the rest of my tutorials. If you want to access idle, the best thing you can do is download a copy of Python from the python.org website. I will be using, I believe I'm running Python 2.7, which doesn't matter very much. There are 2 versions of Python, Python 2 and Python 3. There are slight differences between 2 and 3, so you can download 2.7 or any number higher than that as long as it begins with a 2, and my commands will basically work the same way as yours. If you download Python 3 you should be able to follow along, but if you ever come across some little problems it might be because you've got the newer version. So the first thing we'll look at is registering the script. Now this has to be done with every plugin that we write. So it can be helpful to produce yourself a little template that you can always refer to. I actually have one that I have made earlier. Okay, so this is my what I call my registration template. Whenever I'm making a Gimp plugin, I always turn to this first. I will make this particular template available both on the blog that goes alongside with this final tutorial series. It's just my usual blog, but I've got a series of posts that are to do with these tutorials. And this particular code snippet can also be found on the gist or the gist, which is the GitHub code snippet repository for for this series that I've put together. So the links to those will be available in the blog and in the description of this video, and they'll all be kind of cross-linked and cross-referenced. So hopefully you should be able to find anything that I've mentioned. If you can't find it, just shoot me an email. My email's up here. And then I'll get back to you. So this script might look confusing to begin with, but really there's nothing here apart from the first line that you shouldn't already recognize. That's not entirely true. There's a couple of things in here that we haven't done yet, but the basic stuff that we've covered is all in here and it's all pretty readable. You'll notice the text editor I'm using has these red sections that begin with hash symbols. This is Python's way of showing a comment in the code. That means when I run this program, Python will ignore anything that has a hash in front of it, and it's just the other stuff that's, these other beautiful colors. That's the stuff that's the actual function that reads. You can see the good thing about a text editor that's built for programmers is it, as I said before, it highlights the different keywords so you can kind of see what's going on. The first line is one that will be definitely unfamiliar to you. This is called a shebang or a hashbang, or you just write an exclamation mark and the hash symbol, and then the directory path. You don't have to worry about this too much. This is actually a Unix thing that allows a script to run in a correct environment. You don't always need it, but it's good to get into the habit of using it just in case you ever start programming more seriously. And then this kind of thing becomes a little bit more of a concern. So just put it in, don't worry about what it does. One day you'll know and you'll thank me for it. Next up, after my little comments that won't actually be read by the Python interpreter, we have an import statement that allows us to access the PDB and some other things. So this is the statement we've used before: from gimpfoo import asterisk, or from gimpfoo import all. After that, we have our main function. The file name of the main function and the later references to it should all be the same. Okay, so I have the name of the function here. I have a reference to it here, name of main function, and then also down here at the bottom we've got another reference to it, name of main function. When I make other functions later on in the series, when I change the name of this, obviously I need to change these in these places as well. So that's just something we'll always have to remember to do. Now you can see I've already said that this function, which here is just called name of main function, has two arguments. Okay, so two labeled variables that get passed into this function that will get worked on. Those are image and drawable. This means that this type of function works on the existing image. Okay, so an image has to be open, and then we select our plugin or our script from the filters menu usually, and it will know to work on the thing that's open. So it has to have image and drawable always as its first two arguments. There can be other arguments in there as well, but these two have to go first and they can't be skipped. The image variable is pretty obvious. It's the image that we're working on. The drawable usually refers to the active layer. GIMP thinks of images kind of like containers that can't be drawn on directly, and the thing that they contain is things that can be drawn on, so drawables. So think of the GIMP itself, an image is kind of a working environment. It's kind of like a box, and the layers that we work on are like the sheets of paper in that box. Now obviously you can't draw on an empty box. You can only draw on the paper within that box. So the image and the drawables are two different things. The drawable is the thing that we work on usually. I've said usually the drawable is a layer, and in most cases it is, and in all the cases that we'll look at they will be, but channels can also be drawables, but we'll ignore that for now. When we know what our function will actually do, then we fill the rest in. We get rid of this and we just put in actual instructions. Then after that we have this other function. This is a built-in function called register. It may not look like a function because of this very strange layout, but this is actually from here all the way down to here. This is one function. If you ignore all of the white space and all of the line breaks, you can basically just see that this is a function with lots of arguments. Okay, so this is the first argument, then this is the second argument, this is the third argument, and so on. I'll take you through the register function line by line, just so you get a sense of what all of this means. The first argument is the name of the script. Now by convention this begins with Python foo if it's written in Python, and then we have the name of the function, and we want to replicate what that main function up above was called as well. After that comes a short description. So it's just a very short description of what this thing does. The next one is a long description, which is also referred to as the help string. This is where you give a little bit more detail according to the kind of things that your user will need to know. Next, I have these three arguments on the same line because they all refer to the same kind of information. They could be formatted, one after the other on separate lines, as the rest of it is. It's just a style thing. As I said, Python ignores white space like this, so it really doesn't matter. But what this information is telling us, firstly, is the author's name, so me, Jackson Bates, then the copyright info. So again, for my case, I'm just going to say Jackson Bates, and then we also have the copyright year, because apparently it's important that you know that. The next thing we have is the name for the menu. So this is the name that will be printed in the menu, right? So if we go to filters and artistic, and then we pick, one of the, coffee stain, plugins or whatever, that name in the menu is what it's actually called. So that's what the user thinks the plugin is called. Even though we've called it something up here, it doesn't matter. This is what the user thinks it's called, the name for the menu. After that, we have the type of image that we work on. Now, this can be an asterisk to say it works on all sorts of images. You could say RGB, which means it works on color images, RGB asterisk, which means it can work on either color images or RGBA images, or it can work on grayscale images, or whatever. It doesn't matter. There's lots of different types of image. Usually, if you stick in a star or RGBA, I should have said the A stands for alpha channel. So if you've got an image with a transparency kind of background to it, then it's an RGBA. RGB just has a white background. Obviously, depending on the type of image you actually intend your thing to work on, you just pick the one that's appropriate. Then we have a list of parameters. Okay, so we can see some square brackets here that go from here to here, and I've got a whole lot of stuff inside this square brackets that are commented out, and the only actual things that are useful in there are these parts here in parentheses. Now there's actually quite a bit going on here, so I'll explain this in a little bit more detail a little bit later. But this idea of a list, this is a new concept for us. We haven't come across this yet, and I'll explain it again in a minute when we start looking at the error console and some of the things it can output for us. Now this next one is very interesting to me. Allegedly, this is where you put the results, but in all of the scripts I've looked at online, I haven't actually seen anyone using this. I've only ever seen it used as blank. So if anybody can enlighten me as to what that is for and what I might put in there, I would be eternally grateful to you, because I still haven't got a clue. I've never needed it, I've never used it, and nothing's ever been broken without it. So if anyone can explain it to me, good on you, go for it, let me know. Then next we have the name of the main plugin function, which is the thing that we've had up here. And then finally we have our menu location. Now the one I'm going to make later, the next one I'm going to make is actually going to be in the file menu, but at the moment for my placeholder I just say it belongs in the image. You could also say it belongs in the toolbox, but ours is just going to be in the image. Okay, and then the very last thing in our script is this call to the main function. This simply tells the GIMP to run the main function. We need to do this because even though we defined a function earlier, we didn't actually call upon it to run. Okay, we just, like when we did the hello world function in a previous video, we defined hello world, but that didn't do anything until we actually typed in hello world, open and close parentheses. So that's kind of what's happening here. We're calling the main function. Now the main function is this one, that is also this one, which is also this one. Okay, this is our main function. This is what our function actually does, or what our script actually does. More complicated scripts can have multiple functions defined in them. So calling the main one is what triggers the plugin. The main function itself might call upon other functions that we've written, but that depends on the input and what we want it to do. Anyway, so the final thing we need to do is actually make this one do something. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the name of the function to hello warning. Okay, so we're going to change that to hello warning. We need to change that in the other places in the script. So we need to change that in 3 other places. We're going to change it up here. So we're now going to call that hello warning. We are going to change it here, the name for the menu, and we're going to change it down here, the name of the main function. Okay, so now we have hello warning, hello warning, hello warning, and hello warning. So what we're going to do next is we're going to fire up the procedural database in GIMP so we can find out what the error console message function is. Okay, so I'm going to go to the GIMP, I'm going to open up the error console, and we go to browse, and then I want to try and find the error console message. Anyway, the thing we're looking for is the message, right? So what we're going to get is the GIMP message. So this is what we want. Now remember, to use that, we can just double click it, and we'll get pdb.gimp_message, and then in parentheses message. and it tells us here in the parameters that this argument message is a string, so it's a literal text, and it's a message that will be displayed in the dialog or in the error console. So now that I've got that in there, I can just copy that and go back to my script and just put that in. Okay, so it's very easy. I didn't actually have to figure out how to do that. I just looked it up, copied and pasted it. Now I can change the message to the thing I actually want printed. So I want to print hello world, and then what I would need to do is to save it. Now what you will want to do is save this file as something else, because you don't want to overwrite your registration template, and you don't want everything called registration template. So I'm going to close this and I'm not going to save it because I actually already have one of these made. So my hello warning.py. So what you'll want to do is, so this is everything we had before. One other thing I need to tell you to do, which I didn't do in that previous script, is we can fill in the rest of the register. So I've replaced the short description and the long description, and the copyright info is the same. I got rid of the comments inside this stuff here. Just leave that stuff as its default value. And something else I changed that I hadn't told you about is the menu location. So if you remember, I told you before I was going to put it in the file menu. So what I've got here is menu equals image/file, and that tells us where it goes. The rest is all the same. Then what you want to do is save this. So I saved mine as hello_warning.py, which is the extension for a Python script. And before I forget, one other thing I should point out is where you actually save your hello warning.py file. Now, depending on what platform you're working on, the file directory will usually be a little bit different, but what you're looking for is the Gimp 2.8 plugins folder. So wherever you have your Gimp 2.8 folder, you're just going to look in that for the plugins folder. So the file path for my one, if that helps you find yours, is in the C drive, users, then my username, so Jackson, .gimp-2.8, and then /plugins. And you can see actually a little preview of where we're going with this series, and these are all of the plugins that I'll be showing you how to make over the course of these videos. So that's where you want to save your python.py file. And then once I've saved that, what I need to do the very first time I do this is close the Gimp and then reopen it. Now I don't need to do this, but I'm going to anyway, just out of solidarity, because I know how annoying it is. And then just reopen the Gimp. So what that will do is refresh all of the scripts. From then on, once it's already saved once and it's kind of embedded itself in the Gimp registry, you don't actually need to keep on opening and closing the Gimp every time you make a change to the file. All you need to do is go to refresh your scripts, which you'll probably see throughout this series, so I won't talk about it too much now. So anyway, getting back to our help console, or our hello warning file that we made. You'll remember I saved it in the file menu item for the image. So that's what we've got over here. So file, and if we go right down to the bottom here, you'll see hello warning. Now I'm actually running this on a non-open image. So because I've done that, I've kind of surprised the Gimp, and it doesn't know what my variable should be. It's just saying it's coming up empty. For this particular script, that doesn't matter. For future scripts, you need to make sure that you're actually running it on an open image. So I'm just going to press OK, and when I press OK, I want you just to have a look at what happens up here, because this is where we have our error console. Now, just to show you very quickly how to get your error console if you don't already have it, you can see I've got up here my layers, channels, paths, and undo history tabs. I've added a tab for the error console. Now I've added it up here because this is the area I like to do this particular work in. If you know anything about the way the Gimp uses its menu items, you probably already know that you can just as easily open it up down here with the brushes, patterns and gradients, or you can add it on as an extra thing with the tool options. Gimp is very flexible in where you open up your various workspaces. But in order to open a new tab, or to configure a tab rather, you click on the little triangle in either of these menu areas. You go to Add Tab,
and then you pick the tab that you want to add. So we're going to be adding the error console. Obviously I've already done that, so I don't need to click that. So that's going to put our error console up here for us. And then if I run this, you can see that what I get up here is a hello warning warning, and the hello warning warning prints to the error console that string of text that I entered as a parameter. So there I get my hello world message. So really that's pretty pointless, but as we're making our scripts, we can actually use this trick and make it quite useful for us. Because we can feed different arguments into that message. For example, when we imported everything from Gimp Foo, we loaded lots of extra information that's useful for us to know. Just like we can access math.py, that's a variable called pi that belongs to the math module, we can also access things like image.name. Now that's going to be the name variable belonging to the image. So if we were to replace the hello world argument in the message function with image.name, and notice that's not a string, so it's no speech marks are needed, it's a specific variable I'm calling, the error console will helpfully tell us the name of the image. So I'll see if I can show you that now. So here I have my hello warning.py. I can change this to a variable I want it to put out, so image.name. So this is an object that exists within my Gimp Foo. I'm just going to save that, go back to the Gimp. I will refresh this, which I will need to do through through script foo this time, and refresh scripts. Now obviously since I need the name of an image, I will actually have to open one. Here you can see the name of my image is tutorial image.xcf. And now if I were to run hello warning again, you can see now that my error code, my error console message, now tells me the name of that image. Now that's not particularly helpful in itself, but we can put a different variable in there as well. We could say something like image.width, and I'll just save that, come back into the Gimp and refresh my scripts. And then if I run this again, hello warning, it tells us that the width of this image is 544. Now you might be asking yourself, why do I need to know that information? Because it's already printed up here. So obviously as a human, I can access that information quite easily. But what we're doing here is we're thinking ahead to the sorts of information that we might need in the future. And when you're creating different plugins, it's useful for you to be able to know things like the width of the image or the height of the image, so that you can perform simple mathematical functions like finding the dead center of the image, because you might want to do some sort of editing based on the center of the image, or you might want to move out in a kind of spiral direction. So you kind of need those kind of base numbers to work with for you to do your kind of your maths with. There's also a slightly more complicated thing we can access called image.layers. Now, my original image only has one layer, but let's make another and see what happens when I ask for this information. So I'm just going to go into my layers and I'll just duplicate this one, and I will call my other layer, we'll call it booyah, because why not? Okay, so now we have a booyah and a photo.jpg. So what I'm going to do then is call for the message image.layers. So I'll go back, change width to layers, save, refresh my scripts. So I refresh that. I'll go back to my error console. I'll run my plugin once more, hello warning, and you can see I've got a slightly different output this time. We've got square brackets, which show us that we're working with a list, and we have two list items. We've got GIMP layer or GIMP.layer booyah and GIMP.layer photo.jpg. So Python deals with this by creating a list. A list is like a variable in the way it's set up, but obviously it contains a list of items. We can access the whole list, or we can access just one item in the list at a time. The parameters we set up in the register earlier were in a list, and we can tell they were in a list because they were put in square brackets. This is how we set a list in Python. I'll quickly show you what lists look like back in the Python console. So if I create a list called A, and then in square brackets we'll just have a list of integers, so just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I can print the whole list. So if I just say print A, you can see it just returns that whole list for us, and it's formatted like a list. I can also access elements from the list as well. So for example, I can say print A and then square bracket 0, close square bracket, and when I press this, it returns 1. So you can notice that I'm asking for the 0th item, okay, so the 0 position item, and then we actually get returned what humans would call the first item. This is how computers count. They start at 0. So if I want to retrieve the number 2 from the list, the second item in that list, I'm actually asking Python to return the first item in the list, because a computer starts with 0, so they go 0th, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. So there are actually, as far as Python's concerned, there are 4 items in this list, because one of them is 0. So you've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's all clear as mud, but as soon as you play with it a bit more, you'll figure out what it's trying to do. So it's confusing to begin with, but you get used to it. This principle is useful to know though, because if you ever have to work on a specific layer in the image list, you need to know how to access it and how to refer to its position. So for example, if we wanted to work on the Booyah layer, but we wanted to leave the gimp.layer photo.jpg image layer alone, then what you would end up accessing would be gimp.layer, and then you'd access this item, and then this would actually tell us that it's working on that top layer rather than the one below. Anyway, that's a lot of detail for a simple Hello World tutorial. Took me over 3 months to make it. Probably felt like it took you 3 months to listen to it. In the next tutorial, we'll make a more functional but just as simple plugin, and this is actually going to edit a photo, which is what the GIMP is for after all. Anyway, thank you for bearing with me, thanks for sticking with it, and I look forward to seeing you next time.